Good morning, guys. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if the audio is coming through.
Hello, good morning.
Hello. Well, Mariana, Claudia, good morning. Danielle, Fernanda,
Good
Marcela.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So how did the interviews go, guys? How was it? Was it what you expected?
No, it was unexpected actually.
What were some things that were unexpected, some things that you didn't anticipate?
Um, in my case, for example, one of the most unexpected things um, was that my brother is planning to continue his education, and also he's interested in learning English. So, and expected.
Okay. And were you able to follow up, ask some follow up questions, Fernanda, about that new piece of information that you weren't aware of?
Yeah, I asked him why he was planning that, and he he told me that he believes that learning this language will help him, um, because as if you don't remember, my brother studied a degree in gastronomy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He he is his degree is to food from other countries, also food in Mexico. So he thinks that this language will open him some opportunities in his occupation.
Well, great. No, that's good, and I'm happy to hear that you were able to find something new in your discussions in your interview. So that's great. Um, I'm looking here at the chat. It looks like Marcela's having problems hearing me. So I don't know, Marcela, if you want to maybe exit the group and come back and see if that helps with your audio. Okay, great. Thank you, Fernanda, for sharing that. Anyone else want to discuss some unexpected things that happened during your interview with your family member?
Ah, yo no sé qué es.
Hello,
Mamá.
Jessica.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. That's okay, Jessica. If you want to say something, feel free. That's what I'd like is to hear from you guys as to anything related to your interview that was unexpected, something, maybe some new information you found out about the person that you interviewed. Anyone else want to share? Hello, Chris, Claudia, good morning. Just jump right in, guys, if you want to share something that was unexpected, something new that happened during your interview. Morning, Barb. No one else wants to share anything that was unexpected during your interview? Barb, did you want to share? I see that your mic is on. Did you want to share about your interview if there's something new that you learned from the person that you interviewed? All right. So if no one else wants to share anything, let's go on to the activity. Let me go on to explain what we're going to do today. Today we're actually going to work in the virtual classroom. So if you participate in today's activity, you don't have to worry about signing in just for attendance purposes because you will have already signed in. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll take you to where the assignment is located. So if you go into our virtual classroom under week 11 and you scroll down beneath the links to the interview videos that we talked about this week on Monday and Tuesday, you should see a link here with this little icon. This is a wiki in Moodle, and this is where we're going to work. Now, to explain how to get into this, I'd like for you to kind of watch what I present here first before you go into the wiki, just so that you know what to expect. Now, because I've already signed in and I've already made some edits to this wiki, I can't show you what you're going to see the first time that you go into the wiki, but I did do a video and I won't show the whole video, but I just want to show you where I enter into the wiki the first time so that you know what to do and what to expect. So the audio is not really necessary now to share with you the audio. You can watch the video later if you wish, but the main point I want to make here is what you will find when you enter into the wiki for the first time. So in this video, I'm basically just explaining the steps to access the wiki. And here in a minute, it's going to pop up the initial screen. Let me see if I can fast forward this. All right, so I'm basically saying, okay, this is where it's located, explained, and then here in a second, it's going to pop up the first page. So the first time you enter into the wiki, again, this is only the first time. After the first time, your page will automatically show just as I showed here a second ago. But each of you is going to have your own wiki. All right, so this is going to be the initial screen. I don't know how to get rid of this. All right, the initial screen here. And you'll notice, I can't get rid of that pop-up, but you'll see basically a title page, you'll see home, and you'll see different formats listed. You don't need to change anything. Just leave it as it is, and it will ask you to, what will it say? Create a page. Okay, so there'll be a button there to create a page. You click on that button, and it will take you to the wiki itself. All right, so let me show you what it will do. So again, don't change anything, just click create a page. And it will take you to a page that looks like this. All right, so this is now within the wiki. Once you've created the page, you have created your own page for this activity that we're going to do today in class. This, again, each one of you is going to have your own wiki. So you're not sharing your wiki with others. It's going to be your own wiki. Now I'm going to go back to my page. I'm out of the video now, and I'm in my page here. So basically a wiki, if you're familiar with Wikipedia, all wikis pretty much function the same way. You basically have a published view and you have an edit view. So when you create your page, your wiki page for the very first time, it's going to automatically take you into the edit mode. That's going to look something like this. Now, if you notice along the top, you have these different tabs. You have a view tab, edit, comments, history, map, files, administration. We're not going to talk about all of these tabs, but the main two tabs that I want you to be familiar with when you're working in your wiki are the edit tab, which is the edit. This is where you actually make the changes to your page. Notice you have options of making your window larger if it's easier for you to work to create more of a larger space to view your edits. Notice you have the rich text editor here along the top, and this is where you obviously you should be somewhat familiar with this in terms of centering the text, using bullet points, bold, right, italicized text, and so on. You can even insert images and videos, but basically you have your rich text editor as follows. Now the view tab, if you click on the view, this is your published view. This is actually what your page is going to look like when you have completed it, and it will look however you, whatever text you include, it's going to look like this. Okay, so this is just the published page in the edit, and you can obviously go back and forth as you need to. All right. If you need to, let's say that you make a mistake and you lose some information, or you accidentally delete some information and you want to revert back to an earlier version. Okay, this is a good thing about wikis. You'd never lose any information because every time you edit and you make changes, it saves each revision. Each change that you make is a revision. So how do you access that? If you click on history, you should see a list of modifications that have been made to the wiki. Now, in my case, I just started this page just like an hour ago. But let's say that I make a change to my edit, to my wiki. I go back to edit. Remember, you have to always be in the edit tab. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to edit the document. Now, my internet's a little bit slow, so this is why it's taking here just a little bit longer than usual to populate, to show up. But let's say that I want to make some additional changes, right? So I'm just making a change. Always go down and you can either preview the change, or I'm just going to click save. And now I have my revision. When I hit save, it's going to automatically go to the view mode. Now let's go to history to see what shows up. If you scroll down here, you'll notice that now I have two versions. And I'm always given the option, if I want to, I can compare these options, and I can easily revert back to an earlier version if I so choose. So here I have a comparison of the two. And let's say that I think, well, you know what, I really don't like this version. I want to restore. I can view if I want, but I said, no, I'm going to restore it. I want to go back to the original version in this case, or an earlier version. And I say, it's going to ask you, are you sure? And I'm going to say yes. And voila, I have now reverted back to the original. Now, if I go back to history, I bet there's going to be even a third edit, a third version here. Let's see if, yeah. So it just keeps a running total of all the modifications that you've made. So don't worry if you accidentally delete something, or if you just simply want to go back to an earlier version. This is how you can do it. Going to the history tab, looking at the history, and selecting what you want to compare or which one you want to actually revert back to. We won't deal too much with comments, but comments is if I want to make comments, for example, or if you want to make comments, I can leave you a comment. In fact, I may do that. I may leave you a comment in your wiki for feedback, right? So this is where comments can be made. You can leave comments yourself as the owner of the wiki, and others. In my case, I can also leave comments as well. These are basically the 4 tabs that we need to be concerned with really at this point as we work on today's assignment. Now, what is today's assignment? What I would like for you to do based on your results, I hope that everyone was able to record your interview, because it's going to make today's activity a lot easier if you were able to record your interview. But here's what I would like for you to do. Now, in your interview, you probably asked several questions, and hopefully you got a lot of good responses. So what I would like for you to do is organize your interview based on questions and responses. All right, so I think the easiest way to do this, and the way that I would like for you to do it, because I also want you to try to organize your ideas, right? And I think using kind of an outline form or a format is going to be the easiest way to do this. What I would like for you to do is begin with questions, right? Because I'm assuming that you started your interview at some point with the question. So using your recording, go back and find the questions that you posed, and I would like for you to write out the questions that you asked. Now, I want this also to be kind of a grammatical exercise. So if you made a mistake grammatically in your interview, I would like for you to rewrite the question. I would like for you to write out the question grammatically correct, regardless whether you spoke correctly or not. But I want the question to reflect what you asked. So don't elaborate, don't write out more than what you asked. Just simply write out the question that you asked, and if you need to make changes grammatically to the question itself, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. So here where I have question 1, I'm actually going to replace this. I'm going to pose the question, right? So I might ask something like, instead of question 1, I might say or ask, when did you decide to begin cooking or culinary school, right? When did you begin, right? So I'm going to ask the question here, and then I'm going to list out the responses. So maybe the response, the response could be 1, 2, 3 sentences, or could be more sentences. But here, try to organize your responses based on themes or topics. So if the response was all about one particular idea, then write out the response here. If the response takes a turn and he or she starts to talk about something else, you can continue the response, but list it as a separate response, but to the same question. So notice that I'm using the outline form. If you hit enter and then tab on your computer, it will automatically create a subtitle or a subheading for you to write out your response. So here again, write out what the person said, okay, whatever the person responded to. And again, you can organize these responses. You can break it down into sentences if that's logical. If the sentences are different, if the ideas are different, you can list them out here, right? And let's say that you actually had a follow-up question to one of the responses. So maybe the person was talking about, in this case, beginning school. He decided when he was high school that he wanted to go to cooking school. High school, right? So I write out the response. Right now, I'm just putting general information, but I would like for you to write out what the person said and paying close attention to the grammar. And if this was in Spanish, if the person responded in Spanish, of course, I'm going to ask that you write it out in English. Okay, so write out the question. If you ask the question in Spanish, you don't have to write it out in Spanish. Just write it out in English. Just translate it and check for grammar. Include only what you ask, but write it out in English. So let's say that the interviewee says something about deciding to go to cooking school in high school. Well, then maybe you have a follow-up question. And maybe the follow-up question has something to do with taking high school, maybe classes in high school that related, like which classes in high school helped you decide to attend cooking school, something like that, whatever the question is, right? But this question is actually a follow-up question to my interviewee's response to high school. And so this is, I think, an easy way to do this using an outline and using subheadings and subheadings depending on the follow-up questions that you asked your interviewee. All right. And then if you had a totally separate question, then you can begin another question down here. You can use these buttons here to expand or to collapse, right? Or your bullet points, right? So you can use these buttons back and forth as you need to, right? But then maybe you have a how question, right? And that was the next question and so on. Okay. So this is what I would like for us to work on today based on the interview. Use your recording to assist you in getting as accurate as possible your questions and the responses, and try to upload it to your wiki here in the virtual classroom. Remember to save when you're finished. Don't worry about tags at this point. All right. Any questions about today's activities?
I have a question, Ben.
Yes.
Do we need to divide the responses in topics, or we can put the responses like the person say?
You can, for the purpose of today's activity, just state what the person said. It's almost like a transcript. So you don't have to say, he said this, he told me this. Just say what he said, basically, or what she said.
Okay.
At this point, right? We'll talk about that later. But for right now, we're not going to use reported speech. I'm only going to ask that you write out what the person said. And you can decide if you want to split the responses, if you want to set different bullet points depending on the topic. I want you to think about if it's logical for you to divide up the responses. That's fine, especially if there's a follow-up question. Because if you have a follow-up question, you're probably only want to have you're going to want to have only one point, like in this case, high school. So that one sentence that my interviewee said about high school, I'm going to create a separate bullet point because I know I followed up with a question that was only relevant to what she told me here regarding high school, right?
Okay.
But yes, you just need to write out what the person says.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Any other questions, guys?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So we have to follow the organization as it happens in the interview. It's because in the interview happened kind of disorganized or not how I organize it in my guide. So
Okay, that's a good question. And you can organize your wiki. That is, you can organize your questions and the responses to those questions any way that you wish. I want you to organize it in the way that's the most logical conceptually. Now, it may be that the questions that you asked in the interview were based on, let's say, chronological, like they were chronological in nature, right? They were based on like a story. What did you do first? What did you do second? And so it might make perfect sense to follow the same order. But if you feel like your interview was a little bit disorganized, then try to organize the responses and the questions based on any logical pattern that you think is most appropriate. And that's totally going to depend on what you guys talked about. And this is also part of this exercise, is helping. I want to see how you guys organize your ideas. That is the questions and the responses. So to answer your question, you can choose any way to organize your questions and your responses, but I do want you to choose a purpose, right? An organizing or a reasoning pattern, an organizational pattern that, again, makes logical sense.
okay, and when we have finished, we just save and that's it. We don't have to
That
anything else.
That's correct. What I would suggest doing though is saving periodically, like every few minutes, just in case the internet goes south. If it has a problem and you get disconnected, I don't want you to lose a lot of work that you've been uploading. So I would, every few minutes, I would just get in the habit of saving and then going back to the edit tab and continue making changes and then save again, again, so you don't, lose anything.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to be here though, and if you guys have questions, just jump in, unmute your microphone, and ask your question. I will probably not be looking a lot at the chat, so if you upload something to the chat, I may or may not see it. So if you have, again, questions, just unmute your mic and let me know. All right, guys, I think we'll close for today. Does anyone have any questions about, number one, accessing and creating a page for your wiki? And two, does anyone have any questions about what we're to include in our wiki in terms of reporting both the questions and the responses?
Yes, I have a doubt.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we need to put a title or something like interview for the name of the person or something like that?
Not yet. I would like for that information to be in the guide that you created for the interview. So you can go back to the top section of your interview guide, and you can fill out any anticipated or unanticipated or new information about the person, and you can include the person whom you interviewed. But I would include that information in the interview guide. I don't think it's necessary to include it here in the wiki at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Ben,
Yes, Kim.
do we have the rest of the day or until tomorrow?
Yes, you have basically until we meet again tomorrow. We're going to continue moving, doing something else tomorrow based on what we did today. So yes, you may complete this assignment anytime today, basically before our next class scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions?
No.
No. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, then I think we'll stop there for today. And of course, if you have questions after the class or still have doubts or issues or problems accessing the wiki, send me a chat in Microsoft Teams. Otherwise, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Have enjoy the rest of your day.
See
Bye.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, guys.